Hey everybody, jump in, jump in, jump in. It's Tuesday morning, and so glad you're here today. And excited to talk to you about why your leaderships are not working, why your leadership assessments aren't working, why your leadership assessments aren't working. It sounds like a very probably not exciting topic. And the reason why is because most leadership assessments are really not that exciting. Uh, there are those that are fun and exciting and all those good things. And the reason why I wanted to chat with you today was because what we know for a fact is that many leadership assessments are meaningful and have value. A lot of them don't see the light of day after we take them. And then there's just those that obviously just aren't fun, they aren't exciting, they don't inspire, they don't move us to do something to activate. But overall, the problem with the majority of all leadership assessments is really that they just aren't working for us. On the surface, they do something that's obviously very tangible. They provide us insights into leaders, whether it be your emotional intelligence assessment, whether it be a strengths assessment, whether it be a personality assessment, behavioral assessment. That's all well and good. And today, I just really want to talk about, like, I get it. This could be a very boring topic, but if the topic is so boring, why is the assessment business a multi-billion-dollar business globally? And the reason why is because most people take assessments. And because of that, it's important to really understand that there's something behind the reason why we take assessments, obviously, because we're buying them, we're purchasing them for our teams. But I always tell people the main thing I see that's wrong with leadership assessments and why they aren't working is because we don't know how to apply them. And the majority of leadership assessments that are in the market don't share with you how to apply them. How do you translate insights from an assessment into business operations? Like, what's that delta? Like, and because of that, they just aren't working. They're failing us. They're failing most people. So, this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you something. I want to show you a a couple of slides. They're not a lot, but a couple of slides that are going to talk a little bit about, what our assessment is really about. Why the hard work profile is not a little bit different, but a lot different, and why it's important to really invest in the right type of assessment. The first thing is that what assessments tell you is really important. And the hard work profile, unique to all assessments in the market, because we really focus on the root of the human, the person that's actually taking the assessment. Like, what's the cause? What's the cause of all the things that other assessments actually evaluate? What do I mean by that? You have personality assessments, you have emotional intelligence assessments, you have strengths assessments. The one thing that they all have in common is they are high level surface elements of a human individual and their behavior. The heart rate profile is actually the root, the core, meaning the heart rate profile assesses how your strengths are expressed. It assesses how your personality is expressed. It assesses how your emotional intelligence is expressed. Why is that important? It's important because at the root of everything that we do and experience in life, we have to know that it's really not only the expression itself, it's how we express it. And that's what's the difference between our assessment and so many other assessments. Am I getting a rainbow? I got a rainbow behind me. That's good luck. I got a rainbow behind me. so so to that point, I want to show you kind of some of the things that we've learned with our assessments and why we really are adamant that In order for leadership assessments to work, you have to first understand what you're assessing and why you're assessing it. We assess what we call human skills, human expressions. They are related to how we show up in our heart, in our mind, in our wellness, and in our leadership. And what we found over the past few years is that we aren't well. And I know that may sound crazy, but I think to most of us, if we sit back and think about how we eat, how we exercise, how we rest, and we ask ourselves, like, are we doing those things that are bringing us value of wellness in our lives? What we found over the last few years is after administering assessments to over 1,000 people, we found some very staggering information. And that those data points are right here in this deck slide. One, that physical wellness and exercise and rest, we're struggling as leaders. And I don't mean like, oh, we're right there, Glenn. Our leaders are going to be right there. No, no, we're struggling. These three data points are literally the top three data points that we have seen over the past 3 years with leaders. Where are we struggling as leaders? We're struggling in our nutrition because we're not eating well. We're struggling in our physical wellness because we aren't exercising well. We're struggling in our physical wellness because we aren't resting. We aren't receiving enough adequate rest. And if you know anything in your research around nutrition, exercise, and rest, these are the components that either bring you joy or they're going to bring you misery. The problem there is, though, is that we don't talk about them enough as components and contributors to our ability to lead well, but they are. They are literally directly correlated with our ability as human beings to be great leaders. And not just great leaders in the workplace, great leaders in our homes, great leaders in our communities, great leaders in our church, great leaders in our friend groups. You name it. Great leaders, effective leaders, are maximizing their wellness. And the Hard Work Profile highlights these within our question categories to understand the wellness of leaders. But also, we look at our mind and our heart, and we tap into assessing things such as joy and vulnerability, and fulfillment and gratitude and purpose. Why these areas, Glenn? Like, why do we assess these? Why would these contribute to us as a business understanding more about how we can help our leaders be better leaders? Well, what we also know through our research and through data is that when someone has a life that's full of gratitude, that they actually are able to understand what gratitude is for them, what grateful living is, they show up in a different perspective. They don't show up to manage people. They show up to lift people. And the reason why they show up more so to lift others is because they're grateful for the opportunity to be in the space that they're in. When tough times hit, people that live at a high level of gratitude actually check in. They lean in more because they really are appreciative of the moment, the tough moment equally as the non-tough moment. They love that opportunity because they understand that gratitude is not about all the good stuff, but gratitude is also really about the moment, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. It's the moment that they're grateful for. Well, Glenn, why does it matter that people have joy? The workplace is a place where we get stuff done, right? I would say, listen, the workplace is where we get stuff done, but it does not negate the fact that people have to come into the workplace, bringing meaning into the workplace, regardless of what's transpiring in their life. And if they're not in a joyous space, not happy, but joyous, a joyous space means that I'm able to understand and really see clearly that things things are all right. Even when sometimes they're tough, I can lean into the fact that I'm here, I'm present, I'm able to go at it again, I'm able to push one more time. I realize that my circumstances don't necessarily really define who I am and why I am and what I am. And so joy actually is a state of being as opposed to your emotion. That matters. Our hard work profile assessment is working for leaders when they work it. And I'm going to say that again. It's one thing to take the hard work profile assessment, but it's a whole nother entire thing to actually work it. Meaning taking the hard work profile assessment report, sitting with your team, and actually going through the reflective questions and the exercises together and independently as well, because there is independent work that's required in this process. But when that together work starts to happen, what we begin to understand is that leadership is not about the outcomes in the workplace. Leadership is about the inputs in the life place. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like businesses, whether they're small or large, we're trying to attack leadership and performance through an outcome based strategy. And it's not. It's a strategy that does not work. And we've been knocking our heads against the wall for decades around how do we get the best out of our leaders? How do we get them to be better for themselves and better for their teams? But we've been doing it from an outcome based strategy. If I give you something, you give me something, right? If I give you more money, you give me X. If I give you more resources, you give me Y. It's a manipulation that we talk about all the time, that manipulation versus love. The love directive says to us, let's invest in the input in our leaders. The input. The hard work profile is about the input. It's about the inside out work. It's about understanding that gratitude, purpose, love, and joy, fulfillment, and vulnerability, and wellness, physical wellness, our nutritional wellness, our rest, our exercise, all these are inputs that design a life for an individual to be joyous, to be fulfilled, to be a human being of purpose, to have and understand that even though circumstances in my life may not all be aligned perfectly, that I'm here on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose. And because of that, as a leader, I can show up in the workplace and I can tackle the tough things, even the things I don't have the answers for, because I'm supervising 10 people, 15 people, 25 people, whoever and however it may be, however many that may be. I understand that every time you provide me another team member to supervise, that's another life that I'm supervising essentially. Another person that has a family, maybe kids, a hobby, a job, right, outside of work, all types of things that are transpiring with that individual that I have to tap into. And if I'm well from the inside out, not perfect, but well, if I'm well from the inside out, then I have a higher probability of being able to see the people I serve, the people that are my teammates. I have a higher probability of being able to empathize and show compassion to the people I serve. These are the elements of high performing leaders. High performing leaders are leading from the inside out. They're not manipulating, they're not looking at outcome based strategies, they're looking at input based strategies. What can I invest in you so that from the inside out, you're able to develop into the person and the individual that you seek to be? That's the strategy. This is the difference between leadership assessments that work and leadership assessments that aren't working. And don't get me wrong, many of the leadership assessments out here in the market are great assessments. Yet, where they stop in their ability to be effective and where ours begins is that we are translating this into how it applies in our everyday lives and in the workplace business operations. That's the unique difference. So before you tap into personality assessments and emotional intelligence assessments and strengths assessments, we want you to tap in first to the hard work profile, because we believe firmly that the hard work profile assessment is the starting point actually. Then you jump into your personality assessment. Then you jump into your EQ 2.0 assessment. Then you jump into your strength finders assessment. And the reason why is because the heart rate profile is your basis. It's your foundation. It's actually tapping into, again, how you do everything else. How you express your confident personality, how you express your emotional intelligence, how you express your strengths. We want to fundamentally get inside of the hearts and minds of every human to understand, so they can fully understand, how am I expressing who I am, such that I can really understand how that applies in how I lead. This is the key. I want you to look at something. So outside of the data, I want you to understand why the heart rate profile is working and why it can work for you. Because first and foremost, we tackle the tough stuff. And if you're ready to tackle the tough stuff, then you're on the right path. We tackle the heart, we tackle the mind, we tackle the wellness, and we tackle the leadership. That's the first assessment that you're going to encounter. Because again, this is about inside out work. It's about starting with the individual first. We're not trying to get outcome based strategy with this. We're trying to invest in our leaders. And we want them to invest in the knowledge of understanding, how does my heart express itself? How does my mind express itself? How does my wellness express itself? How does my leadership express itself? And remember, there's no wrong or right answers. These are just the data points. These are just the insights that give us the information that we need in order to process to get to the next assessment. Because the next assessment is the growth assessment. Now, this one right here, this is why I tell you that I really believe that this is where we really delineate between the heart rate profile and all the other assessments in the workplace. Because we firmly believe once you go through the leader assessment, it's time to now talk about application in the business. It's time to talk about how do we grow now within our business culture, within our coaching, within our teams. And then ultimately, how do we execute? These are the categories that we're really asking the tough questions to understand fundamentally. How does my leader assessment, how do those categories for me as a leader, how now does that translate into my growth assessment? How does Glenn, as I express myself as a leader, how does this translate into business application? How does it translate into in the way I coach others? How does it translate in the way I team with others and how I build strong teams? How does it translate in how I actually approach culture design? Right? What kind of culture am I creating as a leader? Based on my leader assessment, now I'm taking my growth assessment, right? And so it marries them. It connects the two. It connects those dots. And then ultimately, how do I execute? When we talk about your leadership assessments aren't working, we're talking about, one, not having the right tools within your assessment to do what you really want to do. And then two, not following the right sequence of events. Okay? What does it mean by not having the right tools? What it means is most clients that we talk with, they're looking for something to help their leaders lead better and effectively perform better. There's really not an assessment for that. There's a personality assessment, shows your personality, tells me how you lead, okay, and you have some exercises, and it's great, but how does it apply to the business? There's the emotional intelligence, okay, it tells me kind of if I'm aware, if I'm an aware leader, if I'm a self-regulated leader, like all those good things. How does it apply to business? There's a strengths assessment. It tells me what types of strengths I bring to the workplace. There's natural strengths. How does it apply to the business? Leaderships that work for this purpose, to not only develop the leader, but also to design a culture that actually contributes to a high performing business. This is the connection point right here. We need to be able to connect the dots because leadership assessments are an investment of not only resources and money, but time. And because of that, if we aren't actually gaining the right type of outcomes from taking these assessments, then the inputs that we're actually going through are meaningless. We want you to gain the right type of not only outcomes, but the right type of impact. That's why the that's why the hard work profile is so unique in the fact that it asks the questions that we really want to ask, but we don't know how to ask sometimes. And then it translates into a space where we typically don't take that next step of sequence of events, meaning we don't take the assessment and make the assessment be a working document. We've had clients in the past that have done some amazing things with the Hard Work Profile. And even to my amazement, where they've gone uh, individual work, where they've taken their assessment reports and they've done individual work, then they come back and do group work, small group work, and then they come back and do macro group work. And then they talk about, okay, how do we apply it to our overall business strategic plan? What do we find through this process of individual work, group work, that really will set us up within our business plan to be more innovative, more creative, even more aggressive with our objectives? Because we found things about ourselves and how we can actually work within ourselves as well as together that will actually push us further and faster if in fact we tap into the knowledge that now we have through the Hard Work Profile assessment. I think that's what using these types of resources is really about. It's about activating it not only for the individual and for a personal experience, but ultimately, how does it apply in our business? So these are a couple of areas that I really like to ask the question when I ask when folks are using their assessments. I want to first stop and say this sun is feeling amazing. I know it's probably shining on the thing. I'm sorry, but it feels amazing. So these are 4 questions that I want you to ask yourself when you think about the assessments that you actually have used, or maybe even using right now. One, does it help you in your new hire onboarding? Does it help you? That's all. That's just a question. Does your assessment or the assessments that you used in the past help you in your new hire onboarding? Connect the dots for me. If the answer is yes, tell me how. How did those assessments that you've taken in the past, that you've administered to your team, invested in, how does it help you in your new hire onboarding? The second question is, how has it helped you in your leader development? Like, what's transpired through you all taking assessments that you've administered in the past, your team, your organization? Like, what's transpired effectively where you can actually pinpoint and call it what it is, name it out, that these are the ways that those assessments helped in our leader development program or platform or whatever it may be. And this is the things that we have seen post the assessment in our leader development that we can say, because of that assessment, this is what transpired within our leader development and how it contributed to not only our leaders, but our business. That's the question. The third is, how have the assessments that you've taken in the past really actually furthered you in your ability to have a healthy and meaningful and transformative coaching a culture? Hmm? I'm waiting. How have those assessments that you've invested in, spent a whole lot of money on, how have they helped you in your coaching culture? And I'm not talking about punitive coaching. I'm talking about the coaching that every day we go in with our leaders and we find opportunities to really coach up our teams, to give them the tools and resources that they need, the words of advice, the equipping them with the right assets that they need to actually lead and actually activate whatever programs that they're guiding, whatever the objectives they're trying to meet. How have those assessments that you've invested in the past or currently contributing directly, not indirectly, but directly to designing a coaching culture that helps you accomplish your business objectives? How? Talk it out. Tell me what it is. And then the last one is, how have your assessments in the past or in the current, how have they contributed to promotion or succession planning? Those are the 4 categories. Those are the 4 questions you have to ask yourself. If your assessments are not contributing to these four categories, then one, your leadership assessments aren't working, and two, you haven't started off with the right assessments. And I get it. Most of everyone is going to look at this video, you're not in the assessment business. And I understand that. And that's why we're here. We're here to really pull the wool back and say, listen, we've been doing this thing a little lopsided for a long time, and we've not been getting the outcomes that we want. And the main reason is because we've been starting it with assessments that aren't contributing to ultimately what we're trying to accomplish as an organization, as a business. We're trying to onboard team members in a way that gets them engaged, excited, and performing immediately. Not that they have to get things done immediately, but get them going, get them having small wins, incremental wins immediately, because the way we onboarded them actually effectively really set them up for success. And because of that, now they feel more connected to the organization quicker. The second level is leader development. We've been doing it kind of haphazardly in so many ways, but because we have a program, we think that we are doing it effectively. But if we're not accomplishing actual consistency and continuity and growth within our leader development platforms and programs, then what are we doing? And then coaching and promotion and succession. I mean, these are all key components of a high performing organization. Assessment should contribute to those. The Hard Work Profile was designed to do just this. The Hard Work Profile assessment was designed to really address the key components of why we are even here. To develop heart-centered leaders, to design heart-centered cultures, and to deploy heart-centered excellence in all that we do within our organization. We're here to have a high-performing organization, a high-performing business. We have to do it with intention. Ask yourself those 4 questions. If your assessments aren't doing these things, if they aren't contributing to these 4 areas, then I'm telling you, it's time for the Hard Work Profile. All right, one last slide. All right, it's easy. People ask me often, like, how do we get started? And I always tell you, listen, it's easy. We made it easy because we don't want those obstacles of trying to, sign on, get on board, go through all these different processes. No, it's easy because once we on board, we certify you. Once we certify you, you go through implementation. Once you go through implementation, we're ready to be here to support you. Assessments should not be an experience where people have a good feeling, like a motivational speech, and then it wanes and you go back to your desk and you forgot you even experienced it and you go back to doing the old status quo. That's not what an assessment should be. An effective assessment should really tap into the individual who took it. It should tap into who that person is, and it should bring insights and information that will lift that person to a next level of life and leadership. An assessment should be a working document, not a one-time experience. An assessment that does the job, that works, that is worth its investment, actually lives. It never dies because it's information and insights that really tap into the design and development of not only a heart-centered leader, but a heart-centered culture. And the Hard Work Profile assessment is designed just for that. Not a one-time experience, but a working experience whereby in which it translates into a business document. I want you to tap into our link in the chat where you can go see and read more about the overview of the Hard Work Profile assessment. You can really look at really the data and some of the research, but really also kind of the process and the effectiveness of kind of how we operate and work within organizations. It is truly a meaningful experience that I hope that you really investigate and take the time to activate. It's affordable. It's easy to onboard. And the reality of it is that we don't have time to waste. We've been wasting a whole lot of time in the past few years working with leadership assessments that aren't working for us. It's time to activate the leadership assessment that's working for you, working for your team, working for your leaders, but ultimately working for your business. That's why we're here. So I appreciate you. Send this video to somebody. Check out the link in the chat. We'll see you next time.